Global Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to That Saturday Feeling version number 8. I'm your host, Ken Davis, with my Wrexham shirt on, and I am joined by my partner in crime, my co-conspirator in all things, all-round good egg, Nick Britton.
Hello, Ken. You're looking very smart.
Thank you.
Very smart with your Wrexham shirt on, I have to say. But not as smart as me, obviously.
Oh, he's got his Derby shirt on, I can see. The EFL has taken over the Premier League then.
Well, not before time, let's face it.
Not before.
It's where all the real entertainment is at, isn't it? Let's face it. Come on.
Telling me. Right, okay, brilliant. Well, we're going to be talking about 4 things today. We're going to be talking about Spurs, and I know you had the pleasure of going to White Hart Lane last night, so we're going to be talking about Spurs. We're going to be talking about who's coming up from the Championship, so we're just prepping ourselves for what to expect next season. We're going to have a look at some of the key weekend fixtures that are about to hit us, and we're going to have a go at predictions. Nick is traditionally a lot more successful than me at that type of thing. So this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. It's the only network that brings you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, women's football, and we also do a roundup in English and we also do a roundup in Spanish. So there's a lot going on. It's a unique listening experience, puts fans first, brings you the very latest news. And now we're on YouTube.
We are on YouTube, and we started out on YouTube a couple of weeks ago, and you will be able to find us. Every single podcast from every single club is now being broadcast on the Global Sports Podcast Network YouTube channel. So you can find us on YouTube. Just search for Global Sports Podcast Network, and we're all there. So not only can you listen to your own teams. Excellent podcast. But if you wanted to, you could also dip into other teams, either who are around you or your rivals or team you're playing, anything like that. It's all under one roof. Global Sports Podcast Network on YouTube for January 2025.
And it's working well. We're getting thousands of downloads a day. And talking about thousands of views and thousands of downloads, January. It's been good for this network. 10,000 podcast downloads this month. So that's absolutely staggering.
It's great, and thank you to everybody for downloading. Thank you everybody to listening. Thank you to the podcast. Thank you to the world, Ken. Thank you to the world, because 10,000 is a great number. We're really, really pleased with it, and that number's going up and up and up week by week by week.
I think the world is thanking us, to be honest. Now, okay, so
not for that shirt, it's not.
I beg your pardon. Now, listen, you were at White Hart Lane last night. Tell us all about that experience, because I've never been to the ground, actually. I normally end up going to Bury and places like that. Never been to White Hart Lane. What was the experience like? And generally, we need to talk about Spurs because things are going seriously wrong, but they went seriously right last night. So tell us about your experience.
Well, it was great. So swap Pride Park for the new White Hart Lane. It's an extraordinary ground. First of all, if you haven't been there, it's an extraordinary ground because it's not really like going to a football stadium. It's like going to an event stadium that just sort of happens to be showing football. And the first things that you experience, you won't really experience anywhere else in a football ground. For example, there are kind of 3 checks of your ticket or security. So you have to sort of have your ticket scanned sort of right on the outskirts. Then you have to go through these airport-style scanners and take all the stuff out of your pockets and all of that. Then you kind of go through another ticket scan. Then you kind of get into the stadium. And where we were last night, which is the East Stand, you walk in, and the first thing you're hit with is this enormous brewery, because they've got a Beavertown brewery inside the stadium.
They're the neck oil people, aren't they?
This beer. You what, sorry?
Are they the neck oil people?
They are the neck oil people. So go to have a pint. We had a pint of neck oil. It's very nice. So you kind of see this brewery, and it's really bright, and there's pop music playing, and it just doesn't at all feel like a football game.
It's never going to catch on, is it, though? It's never going to catch on.
It's the absolute future. It's the absolute future of stadiums and of football. And then there's up lots and lots of flights of stairs. And then you come out, and about 5 minutes before kickoff, there's a big laser show and lights and drama and music. Oh, it's just great. It was great. It did, and I think in the world of modern football, particularly the high-end modern football, this is what stadiums are going to be like. They are going to be built with multi-use design in mind. And of course, Tottenham have a lot of concerts. They have a lot of NFL. They do lots of other stuff apart from the football. It is a great. I'd urge you, if you get the opportunity to go and visit, go and visit. The game itself was very one-sided. And it was a good, entertaining game. Good to see some high-quality football. Son was brilliant. He just ripped Elfsborg apart down the left-hand side, time and time and time again. He got subbed at half-time. But the real story of the night, and this kind of feeds into what we're just about to talk about, is that Tottenham won 3-0, but their goals were all scored by products of their academy, which is really, really interesting. So you had Dane Scarlett, who scored his first goal for the club. You had Damola AJ, who was making his debut for Tottenham.
Wow,
3 minutes after coming onto the pitch, making his debut as a substitute, scored his goal. And then Mikey Moore, who the Spurs fans absolutely love. So the Tottenham fans I was talking to before the game and during and after, they love Mikey Moore. They're very excited by him. He's been at the club since he was 7 years old. He's 17. He's broken through to the first team now.
One of their own, eh?
And they love him. In fact, James Maddison recently described it as like having Neymar on the left wing.
Wow.
And all those goals were scored by then, and that's great. And it was great to see. And that's what kind of Tottenham is that sort of club, isn't it, that should be bringing through these youngsters.
Well, I think the future Spurs kind of depends on it, because they're not buying him in. Let's be honest. So that sounds like it was a great performance. I mean, it wasn't against the greatest opposition ever, I suspect.
No. I've got to say, Elfsborg looked like a lower end Championship side. I mean,
I was about to ask where you'd pitch them in the English.
Yeah, first minute to the 90th minute, just dominated the game.
Right,
it really did. I mean, 3-0. I think both teams, put it like this, both teams will be happy with a 3-0.
Okay, that kind of game. Interesting what you're saying about the stadium. If you've ever been to any of the American stadiums, the NFL stadiums, particularly, not so much baseball, they're very much built that way, and I think that is definitely the future of spectator sports, really, isn't it? I think
very much so, and a lot of it was based on that spectator experience. Traditionally, football stadiums, as we know, are not built for spectator experience. They're built so you can get in and watch the game.
Yeah.
But the more these modern stadiums around the world come online, it is this whole experience of the spectator that is very much high up in the mind of the designers. And I think we were in the stand opposite the main stand. I think if you go into the main stand and into the posh seats, it's even better.
Did it lose anything in terms of traditional spectator experience, or did you still feel it was a great watch for
it was a great watch. Yeah, no, it was a great watch. There was I didn't ever get a sense that you're missing out on anything.
Yeah,
particularly, and I think the way they've designed it, particularly with that enormous bank behind one goal, it meant that the sound was well kept in the stadium, because some of these stadiums, particularly the big stadiums, and I'm thinking of perhaps Newcastle or Old Trafford, where they've just built it as they've gone along and added bits here and there, you can lose the sound. The sound is up instead of being kept, So, no, I think it was fine. I think it was good. It was a great place to visit, and it was a great night. Funny enough, Tottenham around this extraordinary sort of spaceship-like thing that sort of drops into the world, hasn't really changed.
Lovely. It's still lovely, traditional, red brick kind of place you'd go on holiday, Tottenham. Right. But if that was the high point of Tottenham, the 3-0 last night, I mean, let's just set it in some context of Spurs' season. 15th, 24 points out of 23 games, 4 points out of the last 33. Couldn't believe it when I was prepping for this. Now, they're still in the FA Cup, obviously. They're still in the Carabao Cup, very close to winning it. Still in the Europa League. But it's been horrible. And I'm just wondering, have you got a take on why it's been horrible? Whether Ange's is the man? Is he going to turn it round? Or is he going to be the 17th manager in 24 years?
Well, I'll tell you what. There's two stats, or there's two bits that sort of really struck out. One is there was a report published last week, which was the Deloitte Money League for 2023-24.
Were you on it?
And that looks at all the clubs around Europe in terms of wages to turnover. And top of that league, with the lowest wage to turnover, was Tottenham. And their wage to turnover is 42%, or was in that year, 42%. Okay, so they're not paying players as much as other clubs. And to put it into context with who else elsewhere, the next English side on that list was Arsenal at 53%, Chelsea at 73%, so they're paying 73% of their turnover in wages, and then Aston Villa with rather disturbing 96%. So what that shows you is Tottenham aren't spending. They're not spending money. They're not buying players, and they're not paying players in wages. Now that tells you the ones who want the bigger money will just go elsewhere. You know, Harry Kane, for all his brilliance, was getting paid less than kids who were sitting on the Chelsea bench when he was at Tottenham, which is outrageous. You know, it's outrageous. So you've got that.
Some people would argue. Some people would make the point there, saying, oh, well, this is Daniel Levy managing things in a very conservative but very sustainable way. Now, that is one argument, one side of that coin. The other side of the coin is, well, you're just putting yourself at a competitive disadvantage as regards talent. And there's got to be a balance there that you've got to strike. But is the point you're making there that they're not really striking that balance?
That is the point I'm making, and that is the sense that I think if you look down what's happened to Tottenham in the last few years and the managers they've had in, they're all good managers and they've all failed. And the common denominator in all of that is they have all complained that they have not been supported in the transfer market. And Ange Postecoglou, he's got an injury list that he could put a world-class team out of. And Spurs have bought nobody in this league other than a sort of second choice or reserve goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And a youngster who's, just there for development. They haven't bought a proper first team player in the whole of the transfer market, despite this massive injury list, and the manager saying after last week's game against Leicester, he's put out two players who are basically injured, but he's just got a fielded team. And I wonder, the funny thing about last night is, of course, you've got three youngsters there who come on and scored goals and won the game for Spurs, and are they doing Ange a disservice, their own manager a disservice, by putting the thought in Daniel Levy's mind, well, you know what, I don't need to buy players because I've got three lads who have just coming through. There you go, Ange, play them instead. But the other bit to that is that all of last night, despite Tottenham being dominant, despite being kind of a pretty easy and a good night for them, the evening was populated and interrupted constantly every sort of 15 minutes with chants of "We want Daniel Levy out," and it just feels like, and I know we've been here before with Tottenham fans, it feels like they've had enough, and something's got to change. And it's really, when you look at the team and you look at where they should be, the manager needs to be supported better. It's as simple as that. They're not going to get better until they buy some better players.
I think you're right. I think one of the interesting things about the situation is there's relatively little ire being directed at Postecoglou. There's much more ire being directed towards Daniel Levy. And I think for the reason you've just outlined there. I was looking at the January fixtures. Obviously, it just gone past. There was 3 Premier League games Tottenham played. They lost them all. There's 5. Well, it's in the course of February, there's 6 games. But there is 1 cup game. So we've got Brentford away at the weekend, loss in my book. We'll come to predictions later. Liverpool away, loss. Villa away in the cup, loss. United at home, that's Postecoglou's doom game. If he loses that could be it. Ipswich away, you don't know. They'll probably win it 5-0. And then City at home, Man City at home. They have got some proper tough games coming up. I can't see more than 4 points out of them.
And therefore, you're suggesting that they're going to get sucked into a relegation fight?
Well, yes. It's very hard. It sounds unbelievable to say that, but actually, if they get 4 points out the next 5 games, well, they're on 29. Well, they're on 28 points after 28 games. That's relegation form.
It is. I don't think it's as bad as that. I don't think they'll get relegated. I think they will pick up the necessary points, and they are in all the cups. And they've got a great chance, obviously, in the League Cup, and they've got a great chance in the Europa League. They are 2 cups that are eminently winnable for Tottenham. But it's just you hit the nail on the head here. you can't fault Daniel Levy for what he's done in terms of building this extraordinary club, this extraordinary stadium, making it very sustainable, and running it like a really, really tight knit run business. You can't knock him for that, because that's what he's done absolutely brilliantly. But football is about what happens on the pitch. And ultimately, success and failure of an organisation, of a football club, will be determined by what happens on and off the pitch. And right now, that balance, as you put it, the scales have tipped well away from supporting the manager and investing in the first team. And we're seeing the result.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. That's all people are interested in, what happens on the pitch. Right, we are going to talk about who's going to replace Spurs in a second, in terms of what's bubbling away at the top of the Championship. But first, here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time when we were setting this network up selecting our delivery platform. Zencaster was the clear winner of that little competition, with 4K video recording from your phone, AI editing that automatically removes all of the glitches that Nick constantly, you won't hear them, of course. It's constant. He's making mistake after mistake, but Zencaster just deals with that. It's amazing. So it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. Nick is he's looking at me with daggers at the moment. So if you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description.
I can't do what I was about to do.
Learn more about Zencaster, Nick. You should learn more about Zencaster.
I do. I love Zencaster. It is a brilliant platform. It's a great platform. I can't do what I was about to do because we're now on YouTube.
Right, so let's have a look at the Championship. So as it stands, Leeds top, Sheffield United second, Burnley, then Sunderland following close behind West Brom, Middlesbrough, Blackburn, Bristol City. I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions, Nick. Who's going up in the automatic places and who do we need to look out for in the playoffs?
It's a 4-horse race in terms of who's going to go up. I think it's a 4-horse race who's going to go up generally, although the playoffs, as we know, anything can happen. Leeds United are top of the table and I think should be running away with it because they are, from what I've seen. I've watched obviously a lot of Championship football this season. My team's in the Championship. And they are by far and away, in my opinion, the best team in the league, bar none.
Class act.
Yet they're only 2 points ahead of Sheffield United currently, who sit second, and I'm going to watch Sheffield United tomorrow when they come to Pride Park, who themselves are only 1 point ahead of Burnley, and then you've got a couple of points to Sunderland, who are in fourth. So 5 points separate top and fourth place. But I think Leeds will win the league. I think they are the best team in the division, and I struggle to see anything else. The rest, are much of a muchness. And I think the notable thing about the Championship this year, again, this is only my opinion, but the quality seems to be quite low compared to previous years. And I worry for anybody going up next year to the Premier League if they continue with the team that they've got. I think everybody's going to have to invest quite heavily in the summer because none of them are great sides. It's a little bit funny. It's quite tight knit.
And we've seen that before, haven't we, in the Championship, where a team has gone up. And I remember the Fulham team that went up from the Championship. Absolutely, I remember seeing them at Pride Park. Absolutely played them off the pitch. Clearly a class above. And you often see that in the Championship. A couple of teams which are just really very close to Premier standard. Apart from Leeds, we're not really seeing that then.
Not really. I think Burnley seem to be the 0-0 draw specialists at the moment. They haven't conceded a goal for ages, and that's upon which bedrocks of promotion campaigns are built. Clean sheets, and
they've conceded 9 in 29. 9 goals in the whole season. Unbelievable.
Which is extraordinary. And James Trafford in goals doing an amazing job. A lot of people, you must have seen the game the other week when they played Sunderland at home, and Trafford saved 2 penalties in the dying minutes of that game. It's just like, wow, extraordinary. He is a really good keeper, and that will carry you. That will take you a long, long way. But on the basis they've only conceded 9 goals, their goal difference is only +10, so they don't actually score that many either. And goal difference amongst those teams is pretty much the same. The goal difference is about the same. It's really tight up there. It's really tight up there.
Your second team, then. I've got a gun to your head now, Nick. I haven't actually.
If you've got a gun to my head, I think it'll probably be Burnley. not because they're any better than Sheffield United or Sunderland. It's just because they don't concede goals.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm
Scott
with you
Parker's just
both
got them
of those two.
absolutely watertight. He's got absolutely watertight. So
And
there would
Scott
be my
Parker's a
two.
good manager. Yeah, I like Scott Parker. I mean, he wouldn't be my first choice for Burnley, but he's done a good job there.
I think he's done a great job there, and I think he's got every chance of success. And then if you're looking at who's going to go up in the playoffs, well, I would argue that the other two teams who are in that mix are quite a way ahead of other teams in that sort of playoff mix. The teams like West Brom, I think Sheffield United and Sunderland are better than them both, but better than other teams in the playoffs, and it'll be one of those. So I think out of those four, three of them are going to get promoted. I can't see anybody else unless somebody hits an absolutely mad run of form between now and then, and I'm not quite sure who that would be. Looking at the rest of the championship,
West Brom are my dark horse. West Brom are on a decent run of form, and I can see. I like Tony Mowbray. I've always liked him, and I think he's going to get. I think he's going to get a turn out of West Brom. So I can't see them getting anywhere close to automatic, but I think they're going to be a real danger. If you were talking about this being a 4-horse race, West Brom are the dark horse. West Brom are the team I think that of the others could get in the mix in the playoffs.
I think Tony Mowbray is an absolutely brilliant appointment. I think he's a brilliant. I'm so pleased that he's back in football.
Yeah,
after his enforced break. I think he's a great manager, and any team at that level is lucky to have him. And it was good to hear him sort of back on the radio last week after the game, giving an interview, and he was talking about his health. And so you may be right if there's going to be a put on a streak, but they are 11 points behind Sunderland.
Oh, there's no way they're going to get anywhere close to automatic. But I just wouldn't want to. I just wouldn't fancy him. I wouldn't want to play against them in the playoffs.
Yeah, and then you're looking at Middlesbrough as a good playoff contender, Blackburn is a good playoff contender, Bristol City in 8th, maybe not, Watford in 9th, probably, maybe so, because they've maybe underperformed a little bit. So, yeah, it's tight, but I think if you are a Premier League team, fan of a Premier League team, book your tickets to Leeds, go to Elland Road next season, because I think they are going to be the league title winners this year.
Which is very good news for Kate Munro, one of our key stalwarts of Global Sports Podcast Network, because she's going to have a podcast to do.
I don't like saying any of these things, particularly about Leeds. But I'm being objective here, Kenny. You're
going to do him a favour tomorrow, I reckon. I reckon Derby are beating Sheffield United tomorrow.
Well, 7 straight defeats in a row in all competitions for Derby, so 6 in the league, 1 in the cup. If we beat the team that sits in second in the automatic promotion, that is going to be the coupon buster of the weekend. I can tell you that now.
Well, get your money on it. I mean, Hull City beat them 3-0 at home last week.
Yeah.
Battered them. So it's. I think my money's on Derby. So that's who's coming up. We reckon Leeds. We reckon Burnley. You've got to pick another one. Who's it going to be, Nick?
I'm going to say Sunderland. I'm going to say Sunderland because I think they're a good side. I do. I think they're good, really young, really vibrant. They can turn it on. The only thing that might hamper them is that lack of experience towards the end of the season when the pressure is really, really on. That might hamper them. But I saw them recently, and I was very impressed with their movement, with the way they were coached. They were just a vibrant, young, vibrant, energetic side, plenty of skill. So I'm going to put my hat on Sunderland. There you go.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good formula. I'm going to go for West Brom. I just think the Tony Mowbray story would be a great story. And so I've got my fingers crossed for those guys. They're a long way behind, but I think they'll be there in the playoffs. So that's who's coming up to replace. Who are they going to replace before we move on, do you reckon? We had a pretty good go at this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, not much has changed in my view. I think Southampton, I think Leicester, and I think Ipswich.
I think Southampton. I think Leicester still. Ipswich are having a bit of a go, aren't they? And Wolves, having had a great start under Pereira, are now suddenly gone all wobbly. Whatever wobbly is in Portuguese.
Yeah, yeah.
Wobblish.
I don't even know. I'm not even going to
Wobblish.
try. It's it's an odd one that because I think I expected them to pull away. I really did expect them to pull away, and they haven't, and they're down there. Um, but I still think they've got enough in them to get out of it. And for Ipswich, for me, it's all about keeping Delap fit. If they can keep Delap fit, they've
Yeah,
got a chance. If they can't, then they haven't.
that's a good way of summing it up. So I'm going to ask you for your predictions, and let's go through them from Saturday. Forest Brighton. Now I've got a point about Forest that I want to make, and it's not an original thought. You know me. You've known me well enough for long enough to know I never have an original thought, and this is
Glad you
no
said that.
different.
I was gonna say that, but you just beaten me to it. So,
Yeah, so
what's your
self-deprecation, you
unoriginal
see,
thought then?
is
Go on,
where it's at.
amazing.
So Forest, obviously, they lost last weekend heavily, but they also lost the second half against Southampton 2-0. They were 3-0 up at half time, ended up being 3-2. Southampton won the second half 2-0. Forest then go and get battered 5, don't they? Bournemouth, was it last week?
Bournemouth, yep.
I think the Forest bubble has burst.
Well, that's music to my ears. But I don't think I'm not sure. I'm not sure because also think, and we've talked about predictions for tomorrow. The Brighton bubble's been a little flat. It hasn't burst, but it's been a bit flat, hasn't it, in recent times? It's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting point actually. I've not really thought about that. Look, I
This
spoke to a
game
mate of
is
mine.
going to be as flat as last year's Open Asti Spumante.
Which you've still got in your fridge, I believe.
You have 1974.
Yeah, you can have it tonight.
I'll have you watching that game.
Yeah. Listen, you're right about. But I mean, look, Bournemouth went up to Newcastle and thrashed Newcastle at home. They're
Yeah,
on a
good
really
team.
rich vein of form. Um, the Southampton thing. I spoke to a mate of mine about that, who's a massive Forest fan and who was at the game, and he sort of said, "Yeah, we were just a bit complacent. That's all it was. We just thought the game had been won." And Southampton got a goal, and everybody, well, yeah, they've got a goal. And then they got another quite late on. And then, of course, a little bit of nerve setting. But I don't think it was. Put it like this: if the score had been 0-0 at half time, Southampton wouldn't have won the second half 2-0. I think
Yeah,
is my point.
I can see that. But then when Forest go and follow that up with a 5-0 on the receiving end of a 5-0 thrashing, I've just got a feeling that might end up of having been the zenith of Forest season. And from now, the last third of the season, I think we may see Forest reverting to mean, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't have ever had them third at any point in this season, and I don't think they're going to finish third. So let's get these predictions in the book. So Forest Brighton, what are you going for?
I'm going for home win because I know what happens when you have a feeling, Ken, and it never ends well.
That's true, but I've been taking my tablets for that. I'm going for a draw, a 0-0 draw, as flat as last year's Asti Spumante. Bournemouth against Liverpool.
Yeah, look. All my senses are saying that Bournemouth, on the back of this amazing run of form, are arguably favourites for the game. Are they? I don't know. They're going to give Liverpool a really, really good game, but I can't bet. I just can't bet against Liverpool at the moment. I just think they're too good. So away win for me.
And the same for me. For all the reasons you've just said, I think it'll be a great game. I just still think it'll be 3-0 for Liverpool. Everton against Leicester. This is one of my games of the weekend. I'm very much looking forward to this for all the wrong reasons.
Well, I have got this down not as flat as the 1974 Asti Sciumavante bottle in your fridge, but perhaps as last century's Asti Sciumavante,
Wow.
because this is going to be a really, really boring, dull game of football that's going to end 0-0.
So that's a 5-3 away win. Get it in. Get it on your pools coupons. So you're going for a 0-0 draw.
Everton don't score goals, and Calvert-Lewin, who I know hasn't been amazing recently, but has still got capability. He's out injured now for a while. Leicester away from home aren't. No, I mean it's just they beat Tottenham away. it's just one of those random results. But they've lost 7 on the spin before that. I can just see it. Nobody scoring. Nobody. It's just be rubbish. It'll just be rubbish. Nil draw. Go on.
You're not exactly selling this one, but
No,
it
I'm
will
not.
be.
No.
You've got it down as a draw. I've got it as a home win. I think Everton going to sneak a 1-0 there. Ipswich Southampton.
Not,
Now,
not that entertaining. You're looking at me like it's slagging me off for this, but you think it's going to be a dull 1-0 win then?
yeah, I do. I can't. I'm only predicting a 5-3 away victory simply because you've given it such a deadly spin. Ipswich Southampton. Now I know Southampton's it's important to you and it's worth explaining to our listener why it's important to you that Southampton start getting some points.
I'm rooting for Southampton massively for the rest of this season because for those of you who don't know, well, you'll all know I'm a Derby County fan because I relentlessly go on about it. But some of you may not know that Derby County are officially the worst team in Premier League history. That's because in 2007, 2008, we amassed an almighty 11 points across the season. One victory out of all of that. We only won one game all season. And we amassed 11 miserable points. Southampton have only got 6 points, and they're in danger of breaking our record. And you won't find a Derby supporter out there who doesn't want this record to go. We want to keep this record. Yeah?
It's the only thing that makes you relevant.
It makes us relevant. It's about the only thing that does make us relevant to football at the moment. So come on, Southampton. You can do it. You only need 6 more points until May, to get to that magic 12-point figure and allow Derby to just out of a sense of decency, allow Derby to keep that record. So on that note, I'm backing the Saints tomorrow for a point, and I'm going for a score draw.
Well, I'm going for a home win at Ipswich. I think it'll turn in a bit of a corner, and I think they're gonna handsomely beat Southampton. I also hope that Southampton manage to get 12 points. I can't see where they're coming from, but there will be dancing in the streets of Normanton and Allestree and Spondon if Derby hang on to that somewhat strange record that they seem to want to hang on to.
Yeah, just for listeners in America or anywhere else in the world, or indeed anybody outside of Derby, those places that Ken mentioned are suburbs of Derby. Just in case you didn't know where Allestree or Spondon were.
Right. I was about to tell you a terrible Spondon joke then. I just realised we're actually going out to the world, so I won't tell you that joke. Newcastle Fulham. This is interesting game. What do you reckon?
Yeah, this is an interesting game actually, and Newcastle are doing really well. Their little unbeaten, not even an unbeaten run, their winning run came to a shuddering halt against Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, but they picked it up again with a good win against Southampton last week. Fulham, on the other hand, are just a bit up and down at the moment, and they're 13th in the form table over the last 6 games, and I think Newcastle will win this. I think it'll be a good game because I like watching Fulham play. I think they're really good this season. They're very entertaining to watch. Disappointed to see Harry Wilson's out injured for a while as of last weekend. That's a shame because I always like watching him play. But I think Fulham will give them a game, but I think Newcastle will win. So home win for me.
Yeah, home win for me as well. Isak's on a roll. He's looking a really phenomenal player. Newcastle on a roll. I just think they... when we look at the teams that are likely to end up in the Champions League spaces, I mean, Newcastle got it all to play for. We'll come to that before we wrap things up. Here's an interesting one. Wolves Villa. This is an important game. It's obviously a bit of a West Midlands derby. There's a lot riding on this for both teams, I think.
There is, and we talked about Wolves a moment ago, and I'm scratching my head as to why they've kind of just fallen off a little bit and why they kind of haven't run away from that bottom 3 as I expected them to do with the new manager, giving the players the bounce. So I just don't know. I mean,
4 consecutive defeats.
They can't defend set pieces still, and they're too easy to score against. That's the issue.
Yeah,
and I think Villa's front line is really, really good. I genuinely can't see anything other than a Villa win here.
Interesting. I've got it down as a draw, but I can absolutely see the case for a Villa win. But if Wolves happen to make it 5 defeats on the bounce, it's going to start to look very grim for Wolves. And then Sunday, the big game of the weekend for me, Brentford against Spurs.
Why is it the big game of the week for you?
Because I like watching Jeopardy. Not the program, the old 1980s American game show, but Jeopardy in the sense of I'm like glued to Postecoglou at the moment. And I just think, when you've had the kind of run of form that Spurs have got, everyone's biting the fingernails. Brentford decent. They can be decent. They're a bit up and down. They can be really good. I just think that it's going to be a cracking game. And I've got it down as a home win. I think Brentford are going to turn them over.
Yeah, do you know what? If you could see my bit of paper where I was working all this out earlier on, I've got H scrubbed out by A, scrubbed out by D, scrubbed out by H with a question mark next to it. I can't work this out. I can't.
Could be anything.
I settled on an H in the end for a home win, because I think that if they're on form, Brentford at home, they're brilliant. They are brilliant. They've shown to be. And Tottenham, look, 3-0. Playing Elfsborg's one thing. Going away to Brentford's a whole new, different ball game. And in the end, I think Brentford will have too much for me. Maybe a 2-1 or something like that.
Okay, makes sense. Man U Palace. I don't know, just can't call this one. Palace are definitely overachieving now. I think they kind of they pulled it around a little bit in the course of the last couple of months. Certainly more stable, but Man U are just unconvincing still. What do you think?
Well, Palace, you're right, have turned it around. They've turned it around on the back of their away form more than anything else. So they talk about their form over the last 5 games. They sit 6th in the form table in the Premier League,
good.
Which is pretty impressive to Manchester United's 11th. Man United are very unpredictable. We don't quite know what to expect from them. Whereas away from home, Palace, I think, have settled into a little bit of a groove. So I think Palace will get something out of the game. So I've gone for a draw. Good. But it wouldn't surprise me if Palace won, to be honest. It wouldn't surprise me.
No, it wouldn't surprise me. I was in a similar predicament to you in the previous game. I've gone for a Man United home win. I just think for no particular reason, I just think United will just hang on to a 2-1 or something there. Now here's a game. Here's an interesting one. City resurgent. Well, that's probably overstating it. Certainly more comfortable than they have been away at Arsenal. Arsenal obviously in pretty good form themselves. Foden's come back to life. He remembered where the net is. City look decent last couple of weeks, and when I've seen them, are City getting back to winning ways? How do you see this one going?
Getting back to winning ways, and as you say, Foden's been sort of catalyst for that in a lot of ways. They're looking a little bit more like their old selves, but you know what? I keep backing against Arsenal, and they keep proving me wrong. So I'm going to go with them for this week. I'm going to go with them. I'm going to predict a home win.
Home win. I've got it down as a draw. I think it'll be a 2-2. I think there'll be goals.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. That is an absolute fair shout. Yeah. Maybe I should do that.
Well,
maybe
no, you're not. It's too late. It's written
down
now. You've got a home win. I need all the victories on this I can possibly get, and miles behind you.
Yeah.
And finally, Chelsea West Ham.
Right,
Wheels seem to have come off a little bit for Chelsea recently. A bit of a wobble going on there. Bowen supposed to be back for West Ham. Still don't think they're going to have enough to trouble Chelsea, though.
No, I don't at all. I think it'll be quite a. You're right about Chelsea. Their form's a bit of a ditch in many ways. West Ham are an interesting one because they are getting better. They are getting better, but they need to get better quicker. I don't think they're in any danger of going down now, but I think they need to get better fairly quickly. The signs are decent, but neither team, frankly, are on form. If you look at the last 5 games, Chelsea have won 1, drawn 2, lost 2. West Ham have won 1, drawn 1, and lost 3. So there's not much going on in there. So you're then kind of thinking about home advantage. So because Chelsea are at home, they've got home advantage. I'm going to go for a home win.
Yeah, wouldn't disagree rather with really any of that. So, and I've got 3 asterisked games that I'm interested in watching. Everton Leicester. I just think that's going to be an interesting one. Brentford Spurs going to be an interesting one. Obviously, the Arsenal Man City game on Sunday is going to be a great way to finish the weekend, I think. Anything really jump out to you in terms of key matches there?
Our key match, absolutely, Everton versus Leicester City, because it's a bottom of the table clash. Everton have kind of dragged themselves out of it a little bit, but they can get dragged back into it very, very quickly. And can Leicester capitalise on last week's win against Tottenham? And then I think just for purely entertainment value, I think Newcastle Fulham could just be a great game to watch.
I think it will be. Right, that's just about it for another episode of That Saturday Feeling. It's been great to catch up. One thing I'm just going to surprise you with, just going back to my prediction that the Forest bubble has burst. So imagine they are not in the top 5. Who are going to be the 4 teams in the Champions League, and who is going to be the team in the Europa League?
Liverpool are going to win the league.
Yeah.
Then the other 3 teams in the Champions League are going to be Arsenal,
Yeah.
Manchester City,
Yeah.
and Newcastle United.
Wow. And who's in Europa?
Chelsea.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. I was interested. I wrote exactly the same down myself, and I was interested if great minds thought alike, and they did. So, thank you, Nick, for dressing up in your Derby top and joining me to as the EFL take over the Premier League in That Saturday Feeling number 8. We'll be back next week with. I don't know who will be around on this, but I probably will. You probably will. There might be some others too.
I will. Yeah.
Make sure you check out the Global Sports Podcast Network, whoever you support. And if you support no one and you just fancy a team, if you're sitting there in San Antonio, Texas, you think, I need to get into the Premier League. I really need to pick a team. Get yourself on the Global Sports Podcast Network. Have a listen to all the kind of nonsense that's going on there. And Bob's your uncle, as we say in the UK.
And watch it all on YouTube now. So much the better.
Thanks very much indeed. It's been an absolute pleasure